Alright, so I know a lot of yinz guys want me to touch up on the fact about Kenny Pickett and his status for the Seahawks game last Sunday, but I'm not going to get too into it because honestly, at this point, it doesn't mean a whole lot to me going into this matchup Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens. What is going on, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Follow on Instagram. Link is in the box below. This is my Week 18 preview between the Steelers and the Ravens in Baltimore this Saturday evening in Baltimore, if you want to call it the evening. It's going to be dark by the time kickoff happens. So, first and foremost, obviously, yeah, the Steelers do have playoff implications in this matchup, believe it or not, as with a win and either a Buffalo or Jacksonville loss, the Steelers will actually clinch the playoffs. Now, there are other situations where we can do it if none of those things happen, but that's the easiest path that the Steelers have. And honestly, if I sit down here and talk about the other paths, it's going to take a while. But before I get into the preview, I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room, which was Kenny Pickett. So there were rumors that Kenny Pickett actually refused to play backup against the Seahawks on last Sunday's game. But Kenny Pickett came out and he denied any report that he refused to play backup because the trainers said, the trainers and coaches said that if he was healthy enough to go, that he'd start, which is what Tomlin said. And this is what I just don't understand about it. So apparently, hours before the game was supposed to start, Tomlin said that he's not going to play and that he's not going to be the backup and that Mason Rudolph was going to be the starter. But then hours later, hours after the game, Tomlin said, oh yeah, Kenny Pickett would have played. And now Kenny Pickett's saying that he did not refuse to play backup. I just don't understand. To me, it sounds like Tomlin is once again making up a bunch of BS and he's sweeping stuff under the rug. And this wouldn't be the first time that Tomlin did something like that. Do I need to remind you guys about Week 17 of 2018? Because that's what this reminds me of. Because Antonio Brown missed Week 17 of 2018 in a must-win for us, as Tomlin said that he was injured, when in reality, Antonio Brown was starting a big confrontation with Big Ben at the time, and he was actually benched from the game. And when the media asked Tomlin why Antonio Brown was not in the game, Tomlin said that he was dealing with an injury. So, I mean, this is just, once again, Mike Tomlin just sweeping stuff under the rug, not really doing his job, and just making stuff up. Okay? And you guys wonder why I'm hard on him. It's because of crap like this. Tomlin needs to do his job and be honest with the media. And thank God that he is being honest with the media here, because there's literally no reason that Mason Rudolph should not start in this game against the Ravens, because the offenses look significantly better over the course of the last 2-3 weeks since Mason Rudolph has officially been given the green light to go. 64 points in 2 games, 32 on average, which for the umpteenth time is double the amount that the Steelers were averaging when Kenny Pickett was in there. Okay? So that's just plain and simple. So Mason is starting in this game, and like I said, he needs to be the starter should we make the playoffs, and he honestly needs to be the starter, for the short-term future until we can find that quarterback, or Mason Rudolph does ball out and he does show that he is capable of being a franchise guy. Because for as much as a new leaf that I have on Mason Rudolph, until he shows that he is capable of being long-term, I still say that, yeah, I like the guy, but I think he's a good short-term option for right now. That's just me with Mason Rudolph. And plus, let's be honest with ourselves, guys. The Bengals and Seahawks, they do not have the best defenses in the league. Whereas you take a look at the Baltimore Ravens, and I know the Ravens are resting starters in this one. So when you see my picks video on Friday morning, some things might be a little inaccurate. But the Ravens, they have always ran an aggressive 3-4 defense, and they are top 5 in most categories when it comes to defense this season. So everyone talks about their offense, which their offense has been phenomenal this year. Nothing short of amazing. But I would say their defense is actually their biggest aspect. Whereas in their offense, yeah, they're top 10 in most categories, but they're top 5 in most categories with the defense. Like I said, they run an aggressive 3-4. They got great creativity on the defense. They run a lot of presses. They run a lot of shifts. They'll come at you with a lot of blitz packages. And they've just always been very physical under that defense that they've ran with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, it's been like that even before John Harbaugh was there. I mean, the long story short with the Ravens is that they got nothing to play for. They're 13-3. The AFC playoffs goes through them. And if they do not win the Super Bowl this year, man, okay, and I hope to God they don't, but if the Ravens do not win the Super Bowl this year, it's an epic failure of a season. Plain and simple. This Ravens team has all the potential in the world to be the best team that they've ever had. Even better than that 2000 team. Everybody talks about how dominant the 2000 Ravens were, and they were. But I'm telling you, this team right here statistically might actually be better than that 2000 team that they had. So if Baltimore does not win the Super Bowl this year, it's an epic failure. They have all the intangibles to do so. They've dominated their opponents this year. They've been winning in blowout fashion, like on Christmas Day, pounding the 49ers. Last week, 56-19 over the Dolphins to clinch that number 1 seed. Earlier, blew the doors off Seattle. Earlier, blew the doors off Detroit. And their only 3 losses this year, it's not like the Ravens were spanked themselves. It's not like they were dominated by their opponent themselves. This Ravens team, I hate to admit it as a Steeler fan because yins all know how I feel about the Baltimore Ravens. I cannot stand these guys. They honestly could be undefeated. They really could. Because their loss to the Colts, I believe, earlier in the season, which was their first loss, that game went to overtime. And say what you want about the officials with that game, but the Ravens, they had that game won, and they just let up late in the game, and Indy took it to OT and beat them. Their second loss of the season was to us back in Week 5. Ravens, again, several chances to win the game. Receivers dropped a lot of crucial passes, and they had a 10-0 lead on us. And what's been the bread and butter of our formula for as long as I can remember pretty much, okay, you play strong defense throughout 75% of the game. You do the minimum with offense. You shorten the game, and then you win the game in the fourth quarter. That's been the Steeler way for as long as I can remember, for the better part of the last 4 seasons with this defense. And that's what it was in Week 5 when we played Baltimore. We won it 17-10. That's actually their largest margin of defeat this year by 7 points. And then against Cleveland the second time, the Ravens had that game won, and then they had a big choke job, and Cleveland came back and beat them. So it's like the Ravens have lost games, but they honestly could be undefeated if you look at it in a nutshell. So that's the thing with Baltimore right there. in order to win this game, despite the fact that they're going to be resting their starters in this game, I know at least Lamar's going to be resting in this game, which honestly kind of concerns me as a Steeler fan because Lamar Jackson always struggles against the Steelers. In his career, he's thrown 4 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, a 59.1 completion percentage, and a QB rating of just 66.8. So, for whatever reason, the Steeler defense has always been Lamar Jackson's kryptonite. And Lamar, I mean, it's very easy to see why that he's been in the talks for MVP over the past 2 weeks. It's very easy to see. You know, he fits very well with the Todd Monken, who's had a phenomenal first year as Baltimore's OC, with the modern pro spread run offense that they run. And like I said earlier, they're top 10 in just about every category on offense. But it's very easy to see why Lamar has been in the MVP talks. I mean, we all know he's a great runner. We all know the prolific playmaking that he's brought to the table. But this season, he has been a much better processor. His mentality has really improved. And I know the narrative is that he doesn't have a good arm, but his arm talent and his arm power this year has really improved, and he really now has been that pocket passer that Ravens fans have been trying to tell us that he is. But, you know, like I said, it doesn't fit the narrative because he's a running quarterback first. But I got to tell you, Lamar has definitely taken that next step up to being that pocket passer. The only real problem that he has, in my opinion, is that he doesn't have too many glaring deficiencies and that he is a little inconsistent with his decision making at times. But other than that, you're looking at by far an elite quarterback, a guy who's certainly capable of winning his second MVP, and it's just all or nothing for the Baltimore Ravens right now. Like I kept saying, they don't win the Super Bowl, this season's a complete and utter failure. So the thing with that is that because Lamar is not going to be playing this game, Tyler Huntley is going to be starting under center for the Ravens in this game, which they still got a guy like Zay Flowers, who I think is going to be their biggest X factor in this one. I think that opens the door here. I always knew this guy was going to be a big problem for the Baltimore Ravens. His route running is amazing and electric. He's just a dynamic, explosive route runner. He's got great control. He does very well on contested catches, and I think you got to get a lot of guys up on him. You know, JPJ, he had his worst game of his young career so far last week against the Seattle Seahawks, but I think he is due for a bounce back game in this one, as I think defensively you got to play a lot of zone coverage on this one because that's how Baltimore's offense operates. Like I said, they run a modern pro spread offense, so I think a lot of zone coverage on the QB, putting a spy here, and just winning the turnover battle in general are just two very essential contributions to how you're going to win this game. After all, these are the top 2 turnover differential teams in the NFL. The Ravens are first and we're second. So we did win the turnover battle in the first matchup against them in week 5. So I think something like that definitely is one of your bigger contributions as to how you're going to win. If you force the Ravens to lose the turnover battle, which is a good thing here because they're going with their backup in this game, and the Steeler defense does have a knack for causing turnovers, I think your chances of winning are going to increase. But that being said, I still think the Steelers need to prepare for the best in this one because you never know. The Ravens, they got nothing to gain, they got nothing to lose. They're all set for the playoffs. But just knowing the mindset that they have going in this game, it's like our biggest rivals coming to town. They want the playoffs. They can still clinch the playoffs. We're resting our starters. They think it's just going to be a cakewalk for them and they're going to beat us again in Baltimore. Not exactly. you have to still prepare for the best in this one. We've done a good job with holding opponents to under 20 points this season, which we allow 19.6 per game this year. But that doesn't mean just because the Ravens are resting their starters in this one that you can't go in there thinking that they're gonna let you win. They're gonna make you work for that win, starters or no starters. Plain and simple. So again, Mike Tomlin, you cannot go into this game thinking that that's going to be the case. You got that elusive 9th win somehow, okay? Now, your next step is to get this team to the playoffs, and after that, go on a run, and even though it's not going to happen, win the whole thing. Because that's what it's been under Mike Tomlin for years now. Just crossing off step number 1 on it being a successful season, which is winning 9 games, which is finishing over 500. That's cool and all, but guess what? It don't matter. What have you done with those 9 wins? Next to nothing. 2 playoff wins. Yes, I said 2 playoff wins because we know the Bengals handed us that one in 2016. 2 playoff wins since losing Super Bowl 45. And that's just been the mindset. Oh, we got step 1 done. We don't need to do anything else. If this team makes the playoffs and they somehow manage to win a playoff game, there's going to be a different tune about me singing with Mike Tomlin. I can tell you guys that. I can admit when I'm wrong. But to me, it just seems like once again, Tomlin's standard is to just win 9 games, to just barely be over 500, and to be like, you know what? I don't got to do anything else because I'm never going to get fired as long as this team is finishing over 500. It just doesn't fly with me anymore. It may fly with non-Steeler fans. It may fly with casual fans. It may fly with the stat geeks. But as a diehard fan for 22 years now, it don't fly with me anymore. You got your 9th win. Now do something with it. And that's really all I got to say as far as the preview goes. Steelers, Ravens. I don't know if I'll be streaming this game Saturday. It'll be a game time decision. But we at least have to get this win. And we'll see what happens with Buffalo and Jacksonville on Sunday. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I am Mac, checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.